Welcome back to the channel. I get questions concerning various types of door panel repairs, so I've been looking for opportunities to video some of the door panels that I come across in my work. So one of those scenarios happened to be on a 2022 BMW, and two door panels were damaged on that new car. And that happened to be right in the middle of an otherwise scheduled studio day. As you know, I take time to work in the studio from time to time. And on this day, it was a rainy, cold, snowy day, so I decided to work in the studio. So it made for an interesting interruption on my studio day. And since many have been requesting music, I thought I would also show what I do when I work in the studio. So this is going to be a combination video for those that are interested in that sort of a thing. Now I know some don't like music on this channel, so if you're allergic to music, here's fair warning on that. Before starting, I had this clip as a reminder that I'm using the super glue gel, the thick one, to hold the foam in place on the charger door panels. I'm not relying on the self-adhesive alone. Okay, so what I was working on, I'm working on a new CD, which is not original tunes, so I'm playing somebody else's music. And as you know, when the guitar plays the part of the singer, when it comes time for the second verse, the guitar cannot use other lyrics. So what we have to do is we have to change the music a little bit to change the second verse so it's not identical to the first verse. And that is my task on this particular tune. It's in the key of C, and in this turnaround we have the 5 chord as actually an F over G. Like this. So the F over G does serve as a 5 chord. The F from the F chord serves as a 7 for the G chord. The A would serve as a 9. The C would serve as a 4. So it could be thought of as a G9 or a G11 chord. And right after that F over G, which we could figure acts as a G7 chord, comes the C chord. That's the 1 chord. But notice that the 1 chord also occurs in the next measure. So maybe I could postpone going to the 1 chord and put something else in between. And so this is what I'm thinking. For the first C chord, why not substitute an A minor? And then in place of the D minor over C, maybe we could walk up to a B minor 7, and that would take us up finally to the 1 chord, C. So we would have a bass run then that would sound from G7, the bass run. So we'll have some bass movement in there that wasn't in there before. So we postponed the 1 chord and we've inserted some minor chords in the place of it, so we have a minor tonality here, which is a softer sound, which finally resolves itself to the major chord, which is a harder sound, you could say. And then one more thing, I thought maybe we could divide that G7 into half and we could add a G sharp diminished. Meaning now our bass run would sound like this. So that's an interesting movement that wasn't in the song the way it was originally written. So the chords would sound like this. And that comes at the end of this run. So that sounds interesting. So that gives my guitar a new voicing, new lyrics, if you will, for the second verse. Now, following on the heels of this, the balance of this verse changes keys 3 times. And this is why I picked the song, because I'm trying to figure out the genius of this guy. How does he change keys 3 times in a verse? I want to know. Well, all of these chords look like a stele of hieroglyphs until we start analyzing them. So that's what Studio Day is here, is analyzing these chords. And the ones that I've put in the bluish, notice these are all in the key of A. So A is the 1 chord. And how does he get to the 1 chord in the key of A? Well, from the very beginning there, it's a 2-5 cliche movement into A. That 2-5 movement, of course, is used considerably in pop or jazz music. And then once he's in the key of A, he's doing a 1, 2, 3, 4 in A. So it's here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1 in A. So that simplifies our view of all of these chords. He's coming back to the 2 chord, and then he's jumping right into the key of D flat, and those are in the reddish lettering there. And notice what he's doing in D flat. He's also doing a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. And then drop down 1 fret, and we're doing a 2-5 to get us back into the key of C. That's his transitions. That is pretty sweet right there. So how am I going to handle that improvisationally? Well, I thought I would use that 4-finger approach, since I decided to arpeggiate these chords and then connect the keys by using just the scale for the key. So that would be a little connective sort of a thing. So let's go to the bass runs that we made, and then let's go right into this this part here where we're changing keys a few times, and let's see how all that works together. So here it is. Back to C. So I was working that out and feeling pretty good about that for a second verse, and then I get a text message from a friend of mine. He's saying that the BMW dealership is looking for me and they can't find me. I'm not answering my phone. And of course not. It's Studio Day. Phone's off. But my friend's text message is highlighting my phone constantly, so I call them back, and so they've got an emergency here with the BMW dealership, which I haven't done any work for in 20 years. So the answer would have been no, you can go pound sand, except for the fact that my friend promised that he'd put him in touch with me. So just to ease things for my friend and allow him to keep his word, I called the BMW dealership, and they were really needing this thing done badly. Well, it's a rainy, snowy day. I wasn't working in the field, so I told them, if you deliver it, I'll work on it in the shop and we'll get you taken care of. Normally, that would have upset me to be, interrupted in my studio day, but I've come to the realization that I can be happy either way. Either I say no and go happily on my day, or if I say yes, I have to be happy in saying yes. I can't say yes and then do the work begrudgingly, because that would ruin the rest of my day, and I want to come back into the studio. So I don't want doing the job to rob me of my inner peace, right? My inner calm. I don't want it to rob me of my joy in the day, because that will curtail my creativity. You want to keep those creative juices flowing if you can, and not let it upset your day. So I found that lesson to be true over many years. I know I'm a slow learner. I have this expression that by the time you figure out what life is all about, it's too late. But there's a funny backstory to this BMW dealership before we start on those door panels. I think you'll find this humorous. I guess I should set you up for this, because the situation was that I was trying to collect 20 years ago on this bad debt here with the BMW dealership. Well, I'm not going to take them to magistrate's court, because that would involve a whole day off of work, and I would be better off just working another day and making more money than that. So I'm trying to figure out what can I do to get them to finally pay. And so I drafted up a letter, and the letter is written in such a way that if I had gone to court and got a judgment, and then they didn't pay on the judgment, I could go there and collect some of their goods in payment for the loan. Well, the letter was written in such a way that once they got the letter, if they didn't pay, then they de facto agreed to the judgment. So I'm bypassing the courts, and I'm bypassing an attorney and everything, and I'm becoming my own attorney here with this. I'm creating a situation that they find themselves obligated to a judgment if they didn't pay me. So I thought that was pretty clever. And so anyway, you'll see what we're talking about in this letter. Dear Mr. Jerk, in an effort to close out our 2001 fiscal year and bring our current accounting up to date, I would be willing to trade out the value of the above referenced invoices. I can appreciate that businesses at times experience cash flow problems. Indeed, I'm experiencing one now. If it were agreeable with you, the plush couch in your showroom waiting area would look nice in my living room. It seems reasonable to me that the value of a used couch should come close to offsetting the outstanding $250 debt to A.R.T. Incorporated, and I would be willing to consider it payment in full. If I do not hear from you by Thursday, March 14, 2002, I'll assume that this is fine with you, and I will plan to come by with a truck to pick it up that morning. I will bring a receipt indicating the settlement of our transaction at that time. If your payment has already been mailed, please disregard this letter. And as it turned out, my wife and I were on the way to a seminar, and I got a call from the manager saying, "Rick, what's this?" And I said, "It's moldy invoices, that's what that is." And he said, "Well, can I send you a check?" I said, "No." I said, "That's all you've been telling me so far. For how many months? And now you're telling me you're going to send a check, and it's been a lie ever since. So how's that going to help?" And he said, "Well, if I get it in the mail today and you get it tomorrow, will that be okay?" So I told him I'm on my way to a seminar, but if it's in the mailbox when I get back, and if the check clears the bank before Thursday, we're okay. Just to show you that I'm not being unreasonable. And it was, and it did, and we were good. It all settled out. But the funny thing for me, I mean, this is very humorous, the whole thing, and it got their attention, so it really worked. It was pretty clever, I think. But what I was hoping is that they would not pay, because I was really looking forward to going there with a truck. And here's what I knew was going to happen. They would call the cops as I'm trying to haul this couch out of their showroom. I knew that. And so before going, I was going to call the local news people and tell them that there's going to be a dust-up down at the BMW dealership showroom, and the police are going to be there, and they might want to be there by 9 o'clock. The reason I wanted this is because everybody knew that the owner was a jerk and the manager was a jerk. And what better way to to show everybody what a jerk they are than to have them on the evening news. And me right in the middle of it. And even if I didn't get my couch at that point, boy, putting them on the news would have been payment in full. That would, I mean, you can't even pay for that kind of entertainment. It all worked out. So here I am now, faced with this BMW dealership has a new owner and a new manager, and they're bringing me this car to repair. What's funny is I'm still whistling the melody here, which, by the way, you can get creative in your improvisation apart from your instrument. That way, when you go back to your instrument, you play things you might not normally have thought to play, and your fingers go in new places. As it turns out, I failed to record the clean and prep, and the first step, which I just took a heat gun and pressed everything down flat. I think the main objective here on this kind of repair is to get the contour right. We can always blend a grain, but it's so important to keep your repair flat in the flat areas and rounded in the rounded areas. The contour is going to be everything here. And then for this application, notice that I'm doubling up on the graining pads to give me a thicker pad. So that will distribute the impression from my fingers more softly across a wider area, and it will help in wrapping around this corner. We'll get a more gradual, less sharp corner when I double the pad. Part of the success here too is in using good judgment when heating the vinyl. How much heat does this vinyl take? You want to give it as much as it'll take. Here's a little guide coat so I can see my imperfections in here. And then when you're pushing on the hot vinyl, how hard can you push? Well, you don't want to distort it too much. You want to push just hard enough to make the contour, just ease it around. So it's easy to see here how nicely this works, doubling up on the grain pads, so we get a really nice soft curve. We haven't distorted the curve at all on wrapping around. Now you might think I've been doing this so long I wouldn't need a guide coat, but no. The guide coat always shows me where we're missing something. So before going on with our texture and color step, let's fix the other door. Now this door has some deeper indents, and typically on this foam-backed vinyl for the door panels, when it's indented, it doesn't rebound. I'm going to heat this and see if it will come back out. It's not going to be successful here, not very much anyway, but I thought I'd give it a shot, see if I can work it to where it wants to come back out. Which means ultimately I'm just going to have to fill it in. But if we can coax it back a little bit, hey, that helps. Bear in mind, this is a brand new car, so this repair has to have the appearance of a brand new door panel. So if we have to do an extra application of compound or extra graining, it's well worth it. So as you can see, I'm looking for sort of a medium size grain here. We want to blend out our repair. So between each graining step, I'm going to use the hair dryer as what I call freezing in place with heat. Droplets of grain can appear darker and they can appear shiny. So what I'm doing here for the final color step is I'm spraying a much finer mist of color at a little higher pressure and following up with the hair dryer right away. And that way we can get a more matte appearance. And the color will be true. The color won't be darker spots. It'll be all uniform. And we really get a good view of that here on this panel, where the texture is dark and shiny. So we regulate our air pressure a little higher so we'll have a mist of color. And we can see how it dulls down nicely. It's also interesting how this step here revealed one more blemish in our surface. And at this point, it's better to use an air dry filler just to touch up that one imperfection. We don't want to use heat again and risk distorting everything that we've achieved so far. We've got the contour nice, we've got everything else perfect. just this one spot. So the air dry filler is the answer. And that really did the trick nicely, I think. So I was whistling a couple of C notes while working on these door panels. The new manager was very appreciative and he added one C note to the total. So he's happy and I'm happy. Meaning now I can go back into the studio and I'm still in the creative zone. Okay, so after the door panels, I had to come back and write an intro for another tune. This tune has 3 chord stabs that start the song off. We have D. I realize we're capoed up here, but we're going to call it D. It's in E flat. D, G over B, and C6. So it's those 3 stabs. But I don't want to start the song off cold like that. We need an intro to draw you into that. So what can we do to create an intro? Well, since D is our first chord, it's in the key of D, we could end up our intro on A7, which is the dominant chord, and that wants to go to D. So that would be a good target chord for our intro. So what could we put before the A? Well, we could use a chord that's on the circle of fifths then again, which is E minor, right? E minor on the circle of fifths. So we're moving by fifths from E minor to A to D. And what we're doing again, we're creating a 2-5-1 into D, the old cliche, right? So the benefit of this, though, is that it does build the anticipation or the suspension that we want for the intro to draw us in. It needs to resolve to our number 1 chord, which is D. And you can hear that because the use of these chords is how it makes you feel when you hear them. So you can hear the minor tonality, the dominant. You see how that resolves itself nicely to D. So both of those chords lead us in and create the suspense, right, that resolves to D. So those are good to use in the intro. And so what I thought I'd also like to do is to walk a bass line down. Now I have D up here, and so I can walk this down to the A7. So I'm going to try to figure some way to walk that down, because what we'll be doing there is accomplishing two things. Walking down to give a sense of movement, and also moving by fifths, which our ear likes to hear, because we have that tension that resolves itself in our first chord, which is our number 1 chord. Okay? Now the one other thing in the song is that these 3 chord stabs here, they end with an eighth, what we call an 8th push. In other words, the D and the G over B happen on the beat, but the C6 comes before the beat. It's like this: D, G, C, where the C precedes the B. It's pushed an 8th. And that happens in the phrases throughout the song. It's that 8th push that propels that song along. It's like the wind in the sails that moves that song forward. So can we duplicate that in the intro to keep that sense of propulsion? So if I did a lick like this, let's get the tempo. See, that's pushed as well. So that little lick there has the same push as the song. So here's what I've come up with, and I'll tap my foot to get us started at tempo. Did you feel it? Did I pull you in? I hope so. I'm going to leave you with one more idea to help get organized in the studio. When you need extra hangers for cables and you don't want to spend that big money on those expensive ones, try this. I have here some 3-inch deck screws, and I'm going to take a piece of vacuum tubing, and I can mark that at 2 inches. Then I'll be able to turn the deck screw in 1 inch, but for the part that's exposed, I will have a soft surface for the cables to rest on. Just like that. Thanks for watching.